Hello and welcome back to the Jobless Bum YouTube channel. I hope you're having a great day. Today, we're going to be reacting to r/would you rather. We're going to be answering some of Reddit's most difficult and pressing questions. I think this is going to be very thought-provoking, and if you do end up liking the video, be sure to drop a like, as it will help me out a lot, and you'd be doing me a solid. Let's get right into it. First, would you rather? Would you rather have $1 million or be fluent in all languages, dead ones included? This is an interesting question. And I think, the majority of the people picked fluent in all languages, but I think there is something to be said about the value of $1 million. Just because if you think about it, like $1 million is pretty life-changing. It would be pretty life-changing for me. I think with being fluent in all languages, you could use that to potentially get more than the $1 million you would be given in this scenario. However, I don't trust my work ethic enough to be able to use fluency in all languages to be able to get the amount of money that would make taking that worth it. So I think I would pick $1 million over being fluent in all languages. But let's see what the comments have to say. Fluent in all languages, I would have a field day going through all museum texts and pointing out anything mistranslated. That's fair. Would you rather not have $1 million? I think this is interesting because, again, you could use the knowledge of all languages to get more money. That would give you so much earning potential if you could just say, hey, like I know all languages. You would also have to be able to leverage that. So again, I don't really trust myself to leverage that knowledge very well. So I'd pick $1 million over being fluent in all languages. Would you rather, for $10 million, make out with your first cousin, throw a cat off the Empire State Building, or shoot a stranger in the face with a shotgun? Considering both of the other options are murder, I'd probably just make out with my first cousin. However, if it was like more than that, then I would strongly consider throwing the cat off the Empire State Building. I don't think there's a scenario where I would shoot a stranger in the face with a shotgun. Making out, like, you could forget about that. I don't think you'd ever forget about throwing a cat off the Empire State Building. But if it's like, hey, you gotta fuck your first cousin, then that would be a pretty traumatic experience. And I'd probably choose throwing a cat off the Empire State Building over that. But just a make out, like, that's not too bad. So I think I'd rather make out with my first cousin. But, also, you get $10 million. I think I'd still, even if there was an option to not do any of them, I still think I would make out with my first cousin for $10 million. Not that I'd want to, by the way. Yeah, Bum is from Alabama. I'm not saying that I would want to, but I'm saying out of all of the options, and for $10 million, that is the one that I'd pick. Well, let's take a look at the comments. Can we just talk about the contrast between kissing a family member and brutally executing a person with a double barrel? That is true. That was quite the 0 to 100 right there. My cousin is looking kind of good right now. Oh my days. That guy's from Alabama. Explain the situation to my cousin and offer them $5 million to do it. Yeah, it'd be gross, but I think we'll both be too happy with the money to care that much. That's true. I don't know if that's part of the stipulations. I don't know if you can do that, but I think at the end of the day, making out with the cousin is the clear choice out of all the options, I think. Let's get to the next question. Would you rather earn 1 cent per step or $1 per jump? Doesn't have to be any specific height. Just take both feet off the ground. I'm thinking $1 per jump. Let's just say, for example, on a normal day, you take 10,000 steps. How many jumps would that be? That would be 1,000 jumps. So you could just jump up and down 1,000 times, and that would equal what you would normally do in a day. Or I guess 10,000 steps isn't normal, but that's something that people do on a consistent basis, I think. But you could jump up and down 1,000 times. You could get that done in 5 minutes, right? You have a 10-minute jumping jack session every day, and you get $1,000 every day. So I'm thinking $1 per jump. But it seems like more people pick 1 cent every step you take, which is interesting. Let's take a look at the comments and see what they were thinking. This Redditor has the same mindset that I have. I could be wrong because I suck at math, but if you walk 7,000 steps per day, that gets you $70. I could literally jump 100 times for about 5 minutes and get $100. Even on my laziest days, I could do this 3 times a day and get $300, right? So why would I choose walking? Because you take time out of your day to jump, but you step normally, and when you get older, assuming no wheelchair needing injuries, you can step until you die, but can only jump until you're too old for it. And 10K steps isn't really that hard for $100 if you just walk and don't drive places. The next commenter says, you save so much time not having to work that the time it takes to jump is barely even noticeable. You can earn a day's worth of full-time work in less than 6 minutes with a jump rope. Exactly. Can you jump for 10 minutes though? That would be exhausting. I guess, but you could do 10 minutes of jumping jacks, plus you'd get in better shape than just walking. It would be exhausting, but you get used to it over time. Like literally 10 minutes of work a day and you're getting $365,000 per year. Like that's insane money. You can't do the same thing with the steps, I feel like. All right, here we go. Would you rather get $1 million or get $1 billion but can only spend it on stuff that starts with the first letter of your name? So $1 billion and I can only buy things that start with J. What would that even look like? What would I eat? I could buy joints. You're right. So that's already a plus in my book. I could buy Jameson. But here's the thing too. It's like if we're going to base it off of like the brand name, it really depends on what the limitations of the question are. Because it just says stuff that starts with the first letter of your name, right? If we're counting brand names, I'm sure you could find a brand of anything that starts with your first letter of your name. Like $1 billion is just so much more money than $1 million. And like, if it's brand names, then it's definitely $1 billion. I think it's a bit more debatable if it's just the actual name of the thing. If it's like, you can't buy a new computer because it doesn't start with J. That's a bit questionable. But if it's like, you just gotta find a computer brand name that starts with J, then that's a different story. So I think this one really depends on what your interpretation of the rules of this would you rather are. If it's brand names, if you can use brand names that start with your letter, then it's easy, one Billy. But if it's just the name of the object, I think I'm still picking J. You could pay someone whose name starts with your letter, my letter being J, so I could pay my friend Jason to buy whatever I wanted. That's the big brain play here. So it's, you know what, in either scenario, we're picking a Billy. Now let's take a look at the comments and see if I'm dumb. This person says, my name starts with a C. I can buy a car and a lot of house style names start with a C. I could even buy a castle. It seems like this commenter is taking it from the angle of, hey, like it's the object name. Merch, any object, but it has to have a trademark slapped on it. First letter of my name is E. That means you can buy everything. So yeah, so it seems like the commenters are going with the interpretation, not of brand names, but of object names. But even then, I still think a Billy is the choice. A mysterious man approaches you with all of the knowledge in the universe and asks you this. I am offering you $1 billion to bet whether aliens exist. In any life form, must be conscious. If you bet that they exist and you are correct, you receive the $1 billion with no consequences. However, if you bet that they exist and I reveal that you are incorrect and aliens do in fact not exist, you will be killed on the spot. Alternatively, you can choose not to partake in the bet and receive no money and no consequences. I think I'm definitely taking the bet. I am partaking in the bet, of course, because that's too much money to not. And I'm saying that it does. I don't know. I'd have to think about which answer that I choose, but I'm definitely taking the risk. I think I'd say probably that it doesn't exist just because we haven't found it. I'm going to say hey, it doesn't exist. And I'll take my Billy and I'll go to the bank with that. But also, if you lose, you don't really lose anything. I mean, you do lose your life. I think the risk for a $1 billion is definitely worth it. So I'm definitely taking the bet. Let's take a look at the comments. Right or wrong, you wouldn't have to worry about money anymore. See, that's my thinking too. Yeah, you die if you lose, but I feel like for $1 billion, I think that's a worthy risk. And then think about this. Jeff Bezos is laughing in his mansion, and he's like, $1 billion? $1 billion? That can't even get me out the door. But for me, it's like, I think I'd take a 50-50 chance I die. Define alien. Subjectivity is important here. This man could be my definition of alien, but would not fulfill the definition of alien from his perspective. Definitely sounds like a setup for failure. Now that I see this interpretation of the question, I might change my answer here. I think I'd take the bet if I could have a conversation with the guy and we could set rigorous stipulations so that I could not be bamboozled. So I think that I would need strict stipulations, interpretations of the rules of the bet that could not be misconstrued in order for me to take the bet. But I think $1 billion, that's too much to not take the bet. Would you rather fight 4 16-year-olds, 10 11-year-olds, or 27-year-olds? You win $10K and bragging rights. You're in a big empty room and they are aiming to kill you. I'm taking 27-year-olds. Here's my strategy for taking out the 27-year-olds. I do like a little ballet number, like a pirouette, and I just start fucking spinning like a fucking helicopter. They all mob me because they don't have the strategy. They're 7-year-olds. They don't have big enough brains to come up with a strategy to come at me, right? So they're just rushing me, right? I'm just fucking pirouetting with my leg held out, right? And I'm just mowing them down. I'm mowing down these 7-year-olds with my spinning maneuver. That's my strategy. And then I get to 10K, and I get to say that I beat up 27-year-olds. Or you could throw them against the walls. That's true. Let's take a look at the comments. This first replier says, I chose 10 11-year-olds. I feel like 20 humans trying to kill me could get a little dicey, even if they are incredibly small, weak, and fragile. I may be able to take 2 16-year-olds, but 4 is a sure loss. I think I can manage my distance a bit better with 10 11-year-olds and pick them off. Overall, I definitely think I'm taking 27-year-olds. You can use one of the 7-year-olds as a weapon, right? We'll take a look at one more. One final would you rather question. You're being offered one of these enchanted items. Which one would you take? Goggles that allow you to see your surroundings in any historical time period. A flask that supplies an unlimited amount of any liquid put in it. Boots that allow you to walk on any surface free of gravity. Or the softest skin moisturizer in the world. I think it's between the boots and the flask. The flask, I never have to buy alcohol again. Or I buy alcohol once, and then I never have to buy it again. The boots, I guess it would increase my mobility. I don't think I'm creative enough to do anything with the boots, so I'm going to choose the flask, just so I can literally have any liquid. If Mountain Dew decides to discontinue a flavor that I love, no longer will I just have to put up with it. I can just put it in the flask, and I can get an unlimited amount of it. So I think I'm going to take the flask. Get the goggles, look at bank security password or something. Yeah, but I feel like the goggles would just make me do some nefarious shit that, I'm sure people would catch on after a while, right? Like I recently watched Death Note, and I'm not going to spoil it too much. But if you know the basic plot of Death Note is that, you write down the names of people and they die, right? And I'm thinking about if this happened in the real world, I'm sure they would figure it out eventually. If I got those goggles, I would want to rob a bank or do some illegal shit, right? I don't trust myself enough to be able to cover my tracks, so I would not take the goggles. This replier says, I can put any liquid. I would want unlimited amounts of liquefied gold. You could get rich. After reading this comment, I'm definitely more steadfast in my decision. Yeah, I don't care about solving historical mysteries. I want that cash, so I'm taking the flask. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you did enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about these would you rather questions and maybe give what your answers would be in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to stay safe.